Welcome back. As some of you would have seen, in the last couple of videos I've been saying about a tour that I've got planned, something that I've got coming up which I'm really excited for, blah 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 blah. It's finally arrived. Well, it's not Sunday, it has anyway. In the UK, the government have finally let us outside. We're allowed to stay in B&Bs with family members, people of our own household, or one other household, which is great. When this was announced like a month or so ago, I had a call off my dad, and he went, "Shall we go somewhere?" I'm like, yes, of course. And it's only national travel, not international. But the first thing we thought of is Scotland, obviously. As I've mentioned before in previous videos, I have been to Scotland before. We went up on the bikes a couple of years back now, and we did a variation of the North Coast 500. That was fantastic. Really, really enjoyed it. Although I do feel like we missed some bits, and we probably rushed some bits as well. So we thought, let's go and do it again. But every single YouTube channel, every single person on his bike, and everyone in a camper van has done the North Coast 500. So we started thinking of variations of how we can make this different. Along comes a video from Nathan the Postman. If you haven't heard of his channel, I'll stick in a link up here. Well, a link will be in this corner, a picture will be up here. Seems like a really nice guy down in Devon or Dorset in the UK. He bought a postie bike in Australia and rode it back, and since then he does like tours and things like that. He got on the phone with a woman that had created a new set of routes for Scotland. This is aptly named the Crieff Cloverleaf. The reason for that is because it looks like this. Basically what you do here is you stay in Crieff, which is in Perthshire, and you do 4 routes on 4 different days, and they essentially go up and round. So they consist of some of the really well-known roads, which we'll go into in a minute, tourist attractions like the Kelpies and various other things, and also some very well-known local biking roads that not necessarily others will know about. The reason we sort of went for this, because not only is it different, but as soon as we're allowed out, every man, woman and their dogs are going to be going around in camper vans, in their cars, and they're packing up all their tents and everything and getting out. So the North Coast 500 is going to be manic. Say you're riding through Glencoe and you're really trying to enjoy the road, and then you're stuck behind 20 camper vans that are all trying to go up the same single narrow path. It's not as fun as you think it's going to be. So yeah, we stumbled across this Crieff Cloverleaf from Nathan the Postman, and we thought, let's do it. This would be great. So Crieff itself is a small town based in Perthshire. As I mentioned, it is about an hour from Glasgow and Edinburgh. I think you sort of come inland a bit and it's in the middle. Because of COVID, this small town's really struggled. So basing yourself in this town, apparently it's got some really nice restaurants. It's got a distillery, which is, as you might be able to tell, is quite interesting to me. There's also a few bars and like some really nice B&Bs there. We've essentially booked a hotel, but we're basically in our own little 2-bedroom apartment in this place. We're going to stay in Crieff in that B&B, and we're going to travel out and do the days. And each route is about 6 hours, so I think they're between 200 to 280 miles per route, depending on which one you do. And it includes, as I mentioned before, it includes all the scenes, all the really nice roads and everything that you'd be interested in going on. The great thing about this is you don't have to take a tent, you don't have to take a sleeping bag. Right up to the hotel, you've got a lovely warm room with a bed, dump all of your stuff, and then you can ride your bike unladen and just enjoy yourself. There's a free GPX download, so you can load it into your phone or your Garmin device or anything that any GPS you've got, basically. The petrol stations are all noted, all the biker cafes are noted, any of the other stops that might be of interest are all noted on the route. It just looks really well thought out, and the person that came up with it, her and her husband, are bikers, so they do these roads all the time and they know the good ones, they know the less travelled ones. Crieff is quite a small town, and obviously with COVID, like many places, it's been hit with really bad lack of tourism. No one's been allowed outside, so basing yourself in Crieff, that's where you're spending your money. It's bringing tourism back into the area, and hopefully will help sort of revive the town a bit, which is, it's also quite a nice reason that you're going. It's sort of, you're supporting a town rather than spending 9 quid or 10 quid a night to pitch a tent somewhere that you're not really going to help out. So it's Friday when I'm recording this, so I think I've got about a day and a half left until we go. So I've got to pack the bike, I've got to pack all my stuff, I've got to get myself ready, and I can't quite believe it's actually happening. That sounds really odd, but when you've been locked inside for a year and a half, you sort of sit there going, am I really allowed out? what I'm going to do now, I'm going to get into this. I'm going to see if I can work out a way of screen recording on my PC so you guys can see it, and then we can chat through that as well. Before we get started, if any of you are into gaming, a friend of mine set up a Twitch channel. I know this is completely unrelated to the channel, to motorbikes, to touring and everything like that. They've set up a Twitch channel and I said I'll give him a shout out. He sent me this little mug, which is quite nice. Before coffee, and this is after coffee. And they're called Completely Baked. If you're into gaming, check out their channel. It's quite funny, I'll be honest. They're a nice bunch of lads as well. Obviously not sponsored or anything, but he sent me a nice mug, so I thought I'd give him a shout out, sort of helping small channels out. Right, let's get into this, shall we? I'll put a screen recording here somewhere now. So as you can see here, this is the website. Crieff Cloverleaf, it's just literally cloverleaf.scot, and you'll get onto this. As you'll see, they've obviously got good taste because they're using a tracer as their as one of their bikes. But all you got here is a website which explains the routes, it explains the landscape, and basically what I've sort of explained in the intro. You've got a bit of a breakdown of what's in Crieff, so you've got your quality accommodation, you've got some food, and as I mentioned, there's the distilleries and spas and various other things. So along the top here, they've got links to B&Bs, they've got gear, they've got various different tours, and obviously a bit more information. If you scroll down, you get to the routes. So as I mentioned, these are about sort of 200 to 300 miles, depending. Then they're closer to 200 to be fair, so you can do them in a day. I'm going to crucify some of these names, but shoot me. Obviously, like I said, you've got classic biking roads, you've got biker gathering points, route highlights, and hidden gems. Now the hidden gems are the bits where they've picked out that they've gone before and people don't normally know about them until loads of people see this video and then everyone goes this route instead. As you can see here, it tells you what's in them. So this one, you go through the Cairngorm Mountains, you've got Braemar, various other things on this. So this route, as you can see, is about 225 miles and it takes you about 6 hours. Day 2 is when you nip out west. This is one that I'm particularly interested in because I've been on some of these roads before and I know how fantastic they are. You've got Glencoe, you've got Tyndrum, you've got the Trossachs, you've got Loch Lomond, and all these other places which are like phenomenal. They're really cool places to go, and biking roads are just amazing. So that's day 2. Again, 227 miles and about 5 3/4 hours. Day 3 is another 238 mile ride. Again, about 6 hours. Coming south and east is less interesting for me personally. I really like the west coast of Scotland. You're going south of Crieff, which takes you to like Knockhill Racing Circuit, it takes you to the Kelpies and various other things. If you don't know what the Kelpies are, because I didn't, I'll stick a picture in here of one of my photos. So that'd be quite an interesting day. Probably not as good as the west coast, but who knows. And then finally you've got Cloverleaf East, which is a lesser day. This is only 188 miles and 5 3/4 hours again. With this one, you've got like Glen Almond, you've got Kincloven Bridge, like the Lomond Hills and things like that. Again, it looks quite cool. I've looked up some of the photos and where we're going, and it will be interesting, I'm sure. This takes me quite easily onto the next point. If 6 hours a day is too much for you, now, because I think it's 6 hours of riding. You'll have to factor in lunch stops, you'll have to factor in fuel stops and various other things, and however long you want to stare at the Kelpies for, etc. This route is quite suspect, doesn't it? It looks a little bit just need a ride across here somewhere. But yeah, if those are too long, if 6 hours on the bike is too much for you and you don't really fancy that, or you're newer to biking, they've also created the Little Leaf. Now Little Leaf is much shorter, so it's the same kind of thing, but they're sort of 80 to 100 miles rather than sort of 180 to 240-ish. You still go northwest, northeast, southeast and southwest, and then you end up near sort of Loch Lomond. You do some of the west coast, you do some of the south coast. I think you still go down to the Kelpies, but I'm not too sure. But that is a much easier ride. So if you're not really bike fit, should we say, like I mentioned in my previous video about being bike fit, you can give the Little Leaf a go. This video here is the one with Nathan the Postman that I mentioned earlier. That video is well worth a watch. I'll stick a link up in this corner and I'll put a link at the end as well if you want to watch that. It's worth a watch. She sort of goes into more depth about what it is and what it means to her. So that's basically what this is going to be. I cannot wait. I am so excited. I'm not going to bore you with the journey up there. I'm probably going to do 4 videos on this, other than this one, just introducing it. 1 per day, just to give you the highlights and the best bits of all of them. I'm going to get packing, and I'll see you guys next week with day 1 of the Crieff Cloverleaf. That sounded really presentery, didn't it? So I'll catch you in the next one.
Hopefully this is working. I did a video the other day on the brand new Super Adventure for 2021, and I managed to completely lose all my audio because my microphone wasn't plugged in. So that was wicked. Very quickly, while I'm on the motorway, because I'm pretty bored, a few people left comments on my 35,000 mile review. A few of those comments were basically asking what the bike's like on a journey, what the sort of MPG's like actually in like on a long journey, what sort of revs the bike sets at, and how many miles you get out of a tank. So this is, I've obviously sat here, I'm about 160 miles in, 170 miles in, and I've been doing around 70 most of the way. Actually doing around 70, not just for the police watching this, I actually have been doing around 70. I'm perfectly comfortable. My legs are a little bit achy. I did go to the gym yesterday, so probably is the reason for that rather than the bike, but I can just stick my legs out on these crash bungs like this. I am doing 69 mpg, cheeky, and that just keeps going up. I started the journey doing about 55, 60, and that just keeps crawling up. So my dad's actually, he's only about 10-15 miles behind me, but he's come up from Cornwall and I've come up from Hertfordshire, and then we're sort of going to meet in the middle. But we're planning to stop at T-Bay Services, which is 260 something miles away from me, and the bike's range tested is about 240, 250 at absolute, like, that's me sitting on reserve for 40 miles. I worked out around, if I average 60 mpg, I worked out that I could do about 220 miles. I wasn't sure how well these tyres would fare, because obviously I'm on the knobbly Scorpion rallies, so they're not obviously designed for sitting motorway munching, sort of mile munching kind of thing. They've actually done quite well. There's a little bit more vibration through the bike due to them, and the bike is sitting at a slightly higher rev than it normally does. So at 70-ish, I'm sitting at around 4,500 revs. Normally sitting at 70 on like normal road tyres and unladen, it will sit between like 3,000 and 3,500 RPM. This is the throttle lock that I spoke about before, which is, again, it's not ideal. It's like you can see now, I'm going uphill and my speed's slowly going down. So you do have to just sort of occasionally tug on it to just speed the bike back up. But it's not an issue. It's taking your hand off the bar like that and not having to hold the grip open is the biggest thing. So very, very quick sort of update while I'm on the road. I've got 79 miles left until we get to T-Bay, and then I think there's another 100 and something on from there. But I've got 1 bar of fuel left, and it's only just gone down to 1 bar. So I think at an absolute push, if I sit sort of 65 to 70, I might make it on 1 tank, which will be a new record for this bike. That'd be like 265 miles or something along those lines, which would be really, really good. So you look, 69.3 now, so it's just going up and up and up. Anyway, I will see you there. It says take the exit, and I am 40.8 miles into my reserve. This might end up with a video on my channel being what happens when a Yamaha Tracer 700 runs out of petrol on the motorway. There it is, T-Bay Services, 43.1 miles into my reserve. I'm absolutely cacking it. This will give me, what are we at? We are 264 miles into a tank on the Tracer. 265 miles. Oh, is she gonna make it? Oh, the bike feels so light. It feels so light. Let's go and get some fuel, shall we? Be interesting to see how many litres I can get in the bike. 265 miles. And we are here. 265.3 miles. 44 miles basically on reserve. And 71.5 mpg. 15.5 litres in the tank, which means I still had a litre left. We are on the right somewhere. I assume we have to go down Larkyberg. Finn-tree, there he is. Fir tree. Oh. You have arrived in here? Oh, stone. Lucky I got these tyres on. Oh. I hope they've just seen you do that. Come on, getting stuck in the old ruts. Wait a minute, because you don't want to drop it. Oh, perfect. I think I've got one in my top box. Thank you, though.